Uncle Henry is a remarkable man. He is now over 70 years of age, but travels much and preaches from northern Illinois to St. Louis in the principal cities on the railroads. Elder Isaac N. Van Meter, speaking of Henry Smith, 1872.
Despite stringent black laws which legalized slavery in Illinois, free blacks were able to create meaningful communities throughout the state. Many free blacks sought predominantly black settlements in which to live and work, like Equal Rights, Brooklyn, Miller Grove, and New Philadelphia. Some free blacks chose to live among whites in more established cities such as Galena and Springfield. One of those free blacks was Free Frank McWhirter. McWhirter was born a slave in 1777, but his owner, who was also his father, allowed him to hire out his time and keep a portion of what he earned. In 1817, he was able to purchase his wife Lucy's freedom, and 2 years later, bought his own. In 1830, he entered Illinois with his wife and their free-born children and settled on land he had purchased in Pike County. There, he established New Philadelphia. Free Frank ultimately rescued 16 family members from slavery. Another community was established in far southern Illinois. Miller Grove was a free black community located in Pope County in what is today's Shawnee National Forest. Originally settled in 1844 by free slaves from Tennessee, the residents were primarily farmers. The community was named for Bedford Miller, who at age 9 arrived in Miller Grove with his parents. The Miller family had been freed by their former owners, Andrew Miller and his sister Matilda. In Joe Daviess County, Henry Smith, also known as Uncle Henry, was the pastor of Galena's Colored Union Baptist Church until it closed in late 1850s. Smith, his family, and several former parishioners moved to nearby Rush Township, where they established the town of Equal Rights and set up a school and church. Smith was a popular minister throughout the region to both black and white congregations, including nearby New Hope Church. By 1880, Equal Rights boasted 30 residents on 70 acres of farmland.
What does neighborhood mean to you guys? What does that word mean? What's neighborhood? Yes, sir.
When you just say neighborhood, I'm thinking of everybody getting along with everybody and just being good, pretty much.
Yeah. Neighborhood is where people get along. Maybe people know one another. They kind of maybe watch out for one another. What else do you guys think? What does a neighborhood look like to you guys? What do you think it should look like?
Lots of houses.
Lots of houses.
Green grass.
Green grass.
Clean.
Friends.
Kids playing in the yard.
Kids playing.
Kids outside.
Yeah, kids outside. Well, all those things, even though those are all great aspects of a neighborhood, and this may not look like that here now because we're in a national park. This is a historic site, a museum setting. But it's important to remember that all those things you mentioned were going on here 150 years ago and more. This was a neighborhood. This was where average people worked and lived and played in a community. Now, does a neighborhood, do you think, does it have to have? We have kind of the perfect setting here, right? White picket fences and lawns and nice-looking houses and everything is manicured. And do you need that to have a neighborhood?
No.
Nope.
Yeah. What some of the things you already mentioned that is really necessary for a neighborhood, right? It's the people and being friendly, hopefully. But can a neighborhood be out in the country? You could have a kind of a neighborhood. It's maybe a little longer to get to your neighbor's house. That could be a neighborhood. An apartment building, right, can be a neighborhood. Anything else that you can think of where people live that could be a neighborhood? Like a trailer park can be a neighborhood. Anything where people are living and helping and getting along. Don't always get along in a neighborhood, right? Because sometimes, we're people. The reality of people, right? We sometimes have disagreements. So along with people getting along and watching out for one another, there were disagreements. Not everybody saw eye to eye, which was certainly the case here. Give Lincoln for an example. There are people that voted for Lincoln, were big supporters of him, and people that didn't care much for Lincoln at all. And it's important to remember, too, I think, that people didn't walk around up and down the street and say, oh, there's Lincoln, he's going to be president someday. People didn't know that. You know, out of neighborhoods, out of communities can come greatness. People saw eventually that this guy's going somewhere. He's headed in a direction that they kept an eye on him. Eventually he ended up in the White House. But there are lots of communities throughout the state of Illinois that relate to what we're talking about here, and communities where people kind of took charge and had a vision of what something ought to be.
If we took the examples and this conversation about slavery, what if those people who made the difference did not, if they just stopped, gave up, or quit? Where do you think you would be today?
Where they were at.
Which would be where?
Slavery, still
Slavery.
going.
And you see, it wasn't about a color, it was about what something stood for. So there were people of all different sizes, shapes, colors, genders who were against injustice, which is what they felt that slavery was, and which still is. And so when you see something like that, you quickly realize that small steps and perseverance are some essential things, values that maybe we all should have, right?
And what happens if you live those values? If you live those values right now, is someone going to see your example? Do you think your example makes a difference?
They defined with tolerable distinctness in what they did consider all men created equal, equal in certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This they said, and this they meant.
Abraham Lincoln, 1858.